I just want to remind everyone that as we're all masked again, to make sure your mic is on and you're speaking clearly into it. So the first item is the approval of the minutes from the July 2021 meeting.
I move we approve the minutes for the July 2021 minutes.
Second.
I'll second that.
We have a motion in 2 seconds. That's all right. So, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions or nays? Seeing none, minutes are approved. Next is the appearance of interested citizens, which is the time for citizens to bring up issues that are not on the agenda tonight. We have some names of people who are here to talk. Are they here for the agenda item or for something other than the agenda item? Which are? The red light cameras?
Part of it was that, but the other part of it was sidewalk repairs and ADA.
You can come up and talk about that right now. And please state your name and city of residence when you get up here.
So my name is Tammy Kunz. I'm a Kaiser resident. Wow. Okay, so I am also neighborhood watch for Kennedy Meadows area. And some of the concerns that the parents have were ADA sidewalks. I know they're redoing Kennedy Elementary right now. So some of that is being addressed. But Kaiser Road has no sidewalks from the corner by Shamoa or Verta to assist them getting up to the school. So we were wondering if we were gonna be able to get some sidewalks put in place for safety for school as well as regular folks just out walking around. Another one was Lock Haven Road. The sidewalks are very unsafe for wheelchair access. Myself and a couple of others used the side of the road, but we were asked not to do that. We were asked to get back on the sidewalk. So I'm wondering what we can do for a happy medium there.
Just for clarification, which part of Lock Haven are you talking?
Jackie? What part of Lock Haven was that? It was from Verta down toward River Road.
Okay.
And then enforcing speed limits. With the kids getting ready to go back to school, they've been totally ignoring speed limits. I almost got hit by a car last night coming home, and I'm on a sidewalk.
Oh.
Just swerved in by the grace of God. So is there something that we can work on for that?
Was this on Lock Haven also?
Lock Haven, Kaiser Road, and Verta.
The speeding, or the almost getting hit, you mean?
Yep.
Okay.
I've been almost hit several times on Verta.
I'm not sure what's going on with our microphone tonight.
I can't get it to go down any further.
Okay.
It's okay, maybe it's just I'm loud.
Well,
I tend to do that because I'm neighborhood watch, so
No,
I'm
thank
always
you.
yelling at the kids to get out of the road.
I have a question for her.
David.
Tammy, when you mentioned the sidewalks are insufficient or there's problems with them, can you give me a couple of ideas what you're talking about?
So the main one that I'm concerned with is the one for Lock Haven to get down to Winco or Wearmart. Going up over a couple of the gaps in the sidewalk, there's some pretty good gaps. And
So where they've gone like this, the trees have pushed one up or not?
Yeah.
Is that on the north side of Lock Haven? On the Winco side of Lock Haven?
Yes.
Oh, excuse me, that would be the opposite,
South
the
side.
south side.
So it's on the Winco side?
Winco side.
On the Winco side? That's what those are.
Okay. I'll have to go. Yeah, so that is something we're trying to get a handle on, of where we have sidewalk gaps as well as sidewalk deficiencies of just the quality of sidewalk. And we will be talking a little bit about that later on in the agenda. I'll spoilers. There's not a whole lot to say on that yet, but we are working on that.
And then the parkway fence. I've called a couple of different places. Nobody claims it. Salem doesn't claim it. Kaiser doesn't claim it, but we have fence down.
That's
No.
between Kaiser Road and the Parkway?
Yes.
That's ODOT,
Okay, but we
That's
know what to
ODOT?
do about that.
yeah.
Okay, then.
Okay, does anybody else want to talk about sidewalks?
I was just gonna talk about Kennedy and the,
Well, I have a suggestion for them. One thing about sidewalks, and I've done it, is that we have a code the city's code says you can't let the sidewalk in front of your property become hazardous. And if tree roots have pushed them up, or they've eroded, or your driveway eroded it, or whatever, you can call Public Works Code Enforcement I think you could call them on the phone. I forgot, whose name?
Ben.
Who?
Ben?
Ben. And, but you need to know specifically the address of where the problem is. And you can tell him what it is. I wrote them all out. If I get time, I'll walk up there and take a look and do it again. But he will contact them, and the current city policy is that the property owner maintains the sidewalk. And so they will get a letter telling him to fix it, I guess. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but look, he says it nicer than I would, and that works. I've had, people who let their brush grow over, their trees grow over, holes in the sidewalk where it just eroded, and somebody came back in about a month later and patched it up. It's not 100%, but it works to some extent. Okay.
On Kennedy and Kaiser Road, this group with the city council put in a grant, it's almost been 2 years ago, to get a Safe Routes to School grant to improve that section. We didn't get the money for it, but the data and all that is still available, and this next year, we'd like to try it again. Kennedy Elementary and Cummings Elementary do have an assigned Safe Routes to School coordinator, and she will probably be able to partner with us even more this next go around on the grant. So something's in the works, but it's down the road.
Oh, I have something else.
We did a walk around, we got a lot of data, we got pictures, so the issue is well aware.
Down the road or down the sidewalk?
The other one of the roads you mentioned was Kaiser Road, and there's a stretch from Verda up past the elementary on the north side. It goes by the church parking lot. Are you familiar with that? And we've I contacted the church people who own the property, and I talked to Bill Lawyer about it. And it was on one of those, if we can ever save up enough money to get, it's a small job from Verda up towards the school, because there's no sidewalk on that north side of Kaiser Road. There's a sidewalk on the right side. The only problem is it ends up in a ditch. Yeah. And the road actually from Kaiser Road to the traffic circle's good, but it's just a small part. So that has been brought up to their attention once before. We can bring it up again. So I can. Oh.
And as to the speeding, I don't want to step on anyone's toes, Sergeant Leday might have more to talk about that, but, you know, unfortunately, KPD can only be so many places, and there's unfortunately a lot of places where people are speeding. But the more we know about it, the more enforcement we can put at those areas. Yeah.
My first question would be, have you called it in or addressed it online or anything and sent me an email as far as?
Turn it off. Let's try this. I personally don't have your contact. I used to work side by side with Mr. Copeland, who was working with me on getting some of that taken care of.
So yeah, Lieutenant Copeland is in charge of our patrol division.
Right.
Lieutenant Wenning does patrol support, but I actually run our traffic safety unit.
Okay.
So it's on our city website also, but we have a place for traffic complaints. But the big information we need is what days and times are the absolute worst. But because we have 40,000 people within the city, we try to be as efficient as possible. Now, I also heard Kaiser Road, which really surprised me because I don't think I've ever heard of a complaint down there since the speed humps have ever been placed in there.
Yeah, we've got I assume they're drag racing because they're peeling their tires and having a block. But it's usually late at night when that part happens. But we had 2 kids that almost got hit by a car last week.
Okay, so I'm hearing more of an individualized issue potentially.
Probably, but I'm not for sure. I was just asked to address it because they knew I was coming.
So if you wouldn't mind doing me a favor
Okay.
and letting your neighbors know that if they monitor a problem, if they can just get that at least small bit of information, you know, as far as specific days of the week, times of the week, and if they can narrow down within an hour or so the worst times, and that way I can actually assign somebody to that area to try and solve that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else who has a topic that is not on the agenda? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to the next item, which is the discussion recommendation for red light cameras. At our last meeting, we had Martin Dorfler come and mention how they might be a good idea because of people running red lights, especially along River Road. And at the time, we had a discussion, but we wanted to open it to the public. So Debbie, should I do that now, or?
It's not really a public hearing, but you can hear people talking.
Okay. So I'll call, and just in the order that it's on my sheet, Carolyn Holman.
Carolyn Holman, Kaiser resident. I just came tonight to fully support red light cameras. I've seen many instances of people running lights. And last fall, I was a victim of a driver ignoring a red light at Sunset and River Road. I was stopped on Sunset. When the light turned, I proceeded cautiously into the intersection. And that's because we've seen many people run the light there at Sunset. I was nearly halfway into the intersection. Both lanes northbound were stopped. The lane closest to me, southbound, was stopped. The next lane over was vacant. And I suddenly detected a car racing into the intersection from the north. And remember, the light is fully red. All the other cars are stopped. I stopped. Immediately, this car scraped the front of our car, taking out the right turn light and doing some other internal damage to all those sensors that newer cars have now. There were no skid marks. This young driver didn't even hit the brakes. He had no idea the light was red. He did pull into Bimart and come back to share his insurance information. Luckily, he had insurance. We had a witness who stopped and gave us her information. We were very lucky not to be T-boned in this accident. It was a matter of a foot, maybe. It was frightening. And he said he was distracted listening to his tunes. So a red light camera would certainly have caught this entire incident. I'm assuming he might even have been cited. We didn't turn it in because we exchanged information, etc. But I mean, we do see this a lot at that and on River Road. We drive River Road a lot, so anything we can do to slow people down, I think is in everybody's interest, so thank you.
I have a question for Sergeant Leday. When something like that happens, would it automatically, does insurance contact the city about something like that? Because they didn't contact Kaiser PD, but the insurance companies obviously were involved.
Yeah, it's a rarity that we're a full service agency. So every time we get a call, we actually respond to all of our crashes. Obviously, you're never a 100% capture everything. But I think most of our citizens do call us when they're involved with crashes, especially when they occur on our major roadways. We take a ton of them in private parking lots. We don't investigate those, but we facilitate the exchange. But in those particular cases, normally we will go out and we will do a full investigation. And in most cases, we do cite for the primary cause of the crash. Won't say every time, but a majority of the time we cite.
And my other question was, with those cameras, they're stills, right? They're not, there's no video involved. It's just a still photo.
No, there's actually, so there's, I mean, I wasn't present for the last meeting, which was unfortunate because I don't think most people realize that we've already gone through 2 cycles of trying to get photo red light cameras within the city in the past. You know, the major company that most in Oregon are using right now is called the Red Flex system, but it is a monetary program. So the company gets 25% of all violations that go in, so it's a profitable program for them. But again, you're using 100% of their equipment. They do the upkeep and everything else. There's a whole lot more that goes into these programs, though, that are in it. The studies that we've had in the past have all been, we don't have enough violations for it to be profitable for them to actually install their equipment in our intersections. And the last round we had dang near every road along River Road, along with Kaiser Station, and a couple of others that are in the Kaiser Station area. 2018 was the last time I was in contact with Red Flex. We haven't lost contact with them. After hearing about the meeting last month, I dove into statistics. I'm more of a data-driven kind of person instead of an emotional kind of person. I think we have to follow the data. And when I pulled out every one of our red light crashes, meaning our electronic red light crashes, not going into our stop signs or uncontrolled intersections, we had a total of 22 crashes in the last 5 years. Of those 22 crashes, 5 of them were injury. When I go back into the last 5 years of those things and I started pulling some of the contributing factors, most of it was not paying attention. So it was that inattentiveness aspect of it. A majority of our crashes that all happen near our intersections are rear end crashes. So they're not actually going through red lights. They're just not paying attention and they're rear ending people that are stopped for the red lights. And when I pull through all that data, everything still follows the guidelines as far as people are not paying attention to their driving. So I don't believe we still have a red light problem that's going to be profitable to the Red Flex program. Usually with the data, we start looking at, traffic safety aspects, not revenue. Revenue is that bonus that comes out of using that company. That being said, for every violation that you have, you're looking through hundreds of different violations every year. So that would, or I should say every month. So a majority of the violations that we do find with those programs, and I reached out to a few of my other partners from other cities that do have the Red Flex systems, a big chunk of those are right-hand turns. They're not straight through. So people are coming up to red lights and then rolling right on through, making a right-hand turn, not actually bolting through the red light going in for a T-bone type of collision. So most of those are the right-hand turns going in, and those are a majority of the violations that they see or that they capture on video. And that does become somewhat profitable to them also. But when I look at our traffic crash stats, it just doesn't fit the narrative of our traffic safety program here in Kaiser. I was a huge proponent of it in the past until I started really looking at the data, and it just seems like Kaiser's very unique in this scenario, at least so far. If for some reason we start getting more of these angle crashes from our intersections, I think it would absolutely support having Red Flex try to put cameras up. But again, it still has to be profitable to them, meaning we have to have enough violations within a day for them to install their equipment. And so there's a lot of studies that they end up coming out and doing. So there is an upfront cost to them coming out for those studies, and that's why when they communicate with me, it's like, what are our crashes like? Where are we at? Are we seeing an influx? And at this point, I honestly just can't say we're there. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, though. I think that means that people are driving better in Kaiser than some of the other cities. But at the same time, we don't have some of those major intersections like 25th and Mission or some of those other areas where they do have those higher speeds, ODOT roads, multiple lanes, and multiple collisions. I could give you a ton of more information. Like I said, I came today prepared, but this has to do with photo red light.
Okay.
Well, but if the council wants me to go ahead and proceed and push through, I can recontact Red Flex and see if I can convince them to come out to do more studies again. But I just don't think we're quite there yet.
Yeah. Well, let's just hear from the rest of our audience who would like to speak on that. So, sorry, I didn't mean to get too far down the road before we heard from everybody, but the next would be Carol Dorfler.
It's from Martin.
Right.
Carol Dorfler, I'm here from Martin Dorfler, who wasn't able to be here tonight. He says, I am sorry I couldn't be here this evening, but I would like to thank the committee for listening to my concerns at the last meeting about red light runners and excessive noise. I suggested then that the red light cameras, as used in several other cities, might be a valuable tool for the Kaiser police, who seem to be chronically short of staff and apparently have other more pressing concerns than traffic scofflaws. It's my hope that red light cameras, which I think are also capable of measuring speed, are still under discussion since, as a driver and frequent pedestrian, it's pretty obvious to me that running red lights is a problem. A small problem, perhaps, compared to the Delta virus, wildfires, and climate change, but a problem nonetheless, and one that gets worse year by year and will continue to do so unless something is done to penalize it. As to excessive noise, the police officer who attended the last meeting said that it was difficult to cite for noise because the offender had to be caught in the act and when stopped was not making excessive noise because he was stopped. The solution then is another tool, a simple handheld decibel meter as used at racing events to assure compliance with state-mandated noise levels. The officer then only needs to stop the offending vehicle and require the driver to rev the engine. I can point out a half a dozen cars and diesel trucks in my neighborhood that would fail miserably. Again, thanks for listening. I'm sure I'm not alone here. Many other people share my concerns. So that's from Martin. Okay, so this is from Carol. And I don't have a written statement. I just have a question for the officer. Salem uses red light cameras. Are they connected to this company that
With Red Flex, yes, they are.
making profits off of red light runners?
Yes, they are.
Is there no other way to do cameras other than using the Red Flex company?
It's kind of out of my wheelhouse. I would say, just me personally, I would believe if you had the money and the connections to buy the equipment and the operational ability, then probably yes. But I don't think it would even come close that the city of Kaiser could afford something like that. And that's why cities like Portland, Salem, Beaverton, Hillsborough, as small as Woodburn, Woodburn has them in one of their intersections at over enough of 99 and I'm trying to remember what the cross street is, yeah. But again, all of those are connected to the company because of the expense that's involved in it. And then when you add that to it, it costs us at least another half-time FTE to do the reviews and issuing and everything else.
I don't have a response for you, but I will.
And trust me when I say I was 100% proponent, and that's why we've had 2 studies done from Red Flex already, and it does cost them quite a bit in manpower to come out and hit every one of those intersections to do those studies.
I totally get it.
Okay, thank you. Tammy, you're the next one on, if you would like to come back up.
So as far as, again, my name's Tammy Kunz, member of Kaiser. This is my sister Jacqueline Green, Kaiser member. I don't know much about the red light cameras. What I would like to know about that is, do they monitor speed as well?
So in some locations, they do have that capability. It just depends upon where they're placed at, because they have to use a radar system, and there has to be some type of quality control in order to be able to monitor speed. I believe of Salem's, I believe they have 3 of them at this time that are attached with radar also.
Okay. Now, for a private community like Kennedy Meadows, how do we control the speeding of people coming in and out and not stopping at stop signs and driving on sidewalks and playing hit or miss with our kids?
So I would say absolutely the first stop would be contacting us and letting us know we have a problem over there. Because this is honestly the first time in that Kennedy area that I've heard anything. I don't think we've had any complaints that have come in through our dispatch or anybody else.
Several people have been complaining, just
They're not
nobody's willing to come to these things.
And this honestly would not be the forum for it. All you would have to do is contact the police department's non-emergency line and say you want to file a traffic complaint. And then that would actually get filed to our unit.
Okay.
And somebody would contact you and pull that information. Or you could go online from our city website and fill out one of the forms also, and then that would actually get forwarded to me too.
Okay.
Is that just KaiserPD.org or?
Debbie, could you?
www.kaiser.org, and then you go to the departments, and you go to the police.
It's online. I forgot I've called the phone number, the non-emergency phone number is,
That is also, yes, when you go to the police thing, the phone number, you can usually just click on it. If you're doing it on your phone, you can just click on the phone number and automatically dial it.
Yeah, I've used that several
Thank
times.
that's
All right, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
I have a comment. I really appreciate you people coming up. And I remember how hard it was the first time I ever got to say something. Catching for the, and I sympathize with the police, especially the traffic guys, because it's kind of like a great big game of whack-a-mole. Wherever you put the police, something will show up on the other end. Where you used to be, then they'll have a problem. I was raised in Portland and I lived on a small town on the coast, but the traffic incidents were always hard to catch because it moves around all the time. It's not one guy and it's not, or one age group, it's a whole bunch of people and doing stupid things at different times. And so it's really, really hard to catch them. So if we go out and parked on a corner that you saw somebody speed through or run through stop signs, they probably wouldn't do it again. But they do it 5 other places. So, but we do need to know what's going on out there. The police do, and they've been very responsive in my experience.
Yeah, we've got great patrol that comes through
Yeah.
periodically. I
Yeah.
know that's
Yeah.
important.
No, I was just saying, it's almost an almost impossible job sometimes. But I don't think Kaiser it seems to me much safer than, I just got back from Portland yesterday. It's much safer down there.
So I had a question for Sergeant Leday. So you were talking about the red flag system and how they, the numbers just don't pencil out. But you said that some places will monitor speed. Has that been looked at where we could do a combined, because I think I'm not the only one who would say here that people speed on River Road. So I would think probably wear the camera out with speeders on River Road.
Well, again, I can't say anything officially.
Sure.
I've heard rumor that if you hit the 11 mile an hour mark over, that citations get issued out from most of those intersections from different areas. Again, I'm not part of those systems, so that's completely, that is just speculation. And I would also speculate, because we run traffic on a regular basis along River and Lock Haven, because those are most of our crash areas, that we rarely get 11 over the posted speed limit. So we do get some, but rarely do we get to those speeds.
Yeah,
So, and that would be 46 plus.
right. Yeah, I would say most people are doing 40-ish that are speeding. So one thing, we've talked. It was brought up. Put dummy cameras. I imagine there's probably legal issues with that.
Well, just about every one of our intersections has a camera on it, except they're designed to actually help with the flow of traffic.
Oh, okay, gotcha. And then Councilor Day had mentioned to me about if we were to do something like this, if we could have signs, maybe not just at that one, but at several intersections, it might keep people in.
That would be a statutory requirement if you do end up having one within, that you have to have it posted at every entrance to your city.
Well, I think, were you referring to at each light or most lights? Or?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I was down in Roseville, California, for a basketball tournament. It was a cool 103 when I was there. And they have, I've got two brothers who happen to live in Roseville, and I noticed there were a couple of really large intersections that had red light cameras, but every intersection where there was a light had a sign that said, basically, I don't remember exactly what it said. It said, run a red light citation, violation, or whatever, $428. I remember how much it was, right? And it was everywhere. I mean, they were on in every intersection. You knew if you got caught running a red light, you're going to pay at least I think it said at least $428. And my brother, who he not only watches the city of Roseville City Council, but he watches the city of Kaiser City Council. That's how much of a nerd he is. He said that those signs have actually the city believes that just putting those signs up helps dramatically decrease the number of red light runners in the city. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what he reported to me. But you couldn't help but notice that they had these signs that said, if you run a red light, it's going to cost you at least $428. And thought, wow, that's not a bad reminding people, if you run this red light, this is what it's going to cost you. If you get caught, this is what it's going to cost you. Anyways, that was just an alternative to putting up cameras or whatever.
Yeah, because that sounds like something that would be, the cameras aren't even relevant to the argument. It's just a sign. And you would ticket someone who ran a red light if you saw them regardless of the camera.
Outside of the ethical thing, I don't think the city or the government or the police should lie. I mean, I don't think it works. And the other one is, I don't think you should lie about stuff. I mean, if you're not gonna do it, then don't say you're doing it.
Yeah, I think what he's saying is
It was just,
If you
regardless.
do it, yeah.
it was just a sign that said, violation or fine for running red light, at least
Okay.
$428. It didn't say there was
Oh, okay,
cameras
they're
or,
going to do it.
Right.
yeah.
All right.
It would be very similar to where throughout the state, you'll find, click it or ticket types of signs,
Littering.
what the fine's going to be. Put your cell phone away, this is what the fine's gonna be. And we do have those periodically throughout the state. Different areas have those on some of our major highways. It'd be a $265 fine if you run a red light. That would be something though that Public Works would actually have to finance, address. They'd have to work with the city of Salem because I believe Salem is, the maintainers of our traffic control devices. So if they were placed on
Signs.
something like that, I just don't know what it would all entail.
They're expensive, I'll tell you that.
Well, I'm a proponent of something for River Road. Clearly, that is not that it doesn't happen on our side streets, but River Road has been where most of our accidents have occurred, our deaths have occurred over time. So I want to do something on River Road, or at least head that way. I appreciate the information that Sergeant Leday gave us on the company. I didn't realize there was a proprietary thing. That kind of, okay. And the idea of putting dummy ones up, I can tell you from my days with state risk management and having a judge say, the government is not allowed to lie.
Yeah.
And that's basically,
But you could,
and in a court situation where somebody wants that film for some evidence and you say, well, that was a dummy sign, Kaiser would be liable, guaranteed. But I want to do something, and
But you were talking about just giving information
yeah, I think
and threatening.
in 2018, that was pre-COVID. I think there's been a lot of emotional other issues that have changed in Kaiser. Maybe people are driving faster. But I know these companies do want their money up front. I'd like to have a little more research done. I don't want to kill the red light issue in Kaiser. And the other question I have, and you may not be able to know, is if we got one for my favorite street is River Road in Chemawa, could we move it? You can't move it.
Again, I'm not the engineer for Red
Yeah.
Flex, obviously. From my past experiences and sitting down in their discussions and things like that, most of those are permanent infix.
Well, I didn't know, but if there are portable ones, then just like our speed signs, or flashers, we could move them around on River Road, maybe even into some of the arterials and get the money for the company that way, but
Well,
I guess it's going to require more research, but speeding and running red lights.
so the video that they give is pretty incredible. And I will say that there are law enforcement benefits to having a Red Flex system for different investigations for us.
Yeah.
Because it is running 24/7. The quality is the only thing that changes during the violation. So off the top of my head, I want to say, it's recording in digital on a regular basis, but every violation that goes through, it gives a clip of like 4K. So literally you can see the individuals inside the cars and everything else like that. So as far as an investigative tool, it definitely has its benefits. So as far as law enforcement goes, there's a lot of things that could benefit us. The problem is, again, is what do we want the system for ethically? Is it to cut our crashes down to make our roadways safer? And I would say, yeah, that should be our goal. Unfortunately, when I pull our data, 5 injury crashes in 5 years from a specific red light violation, meaning somebody just blew through.
Yeah.
It doesn't support the speed and it doesn't support the data because out of the 22, we should have had 22 serious injury crashes if speed was the major factor involved in it also. So again, that's where I struggle in the aspect of traffic safety. And if traffic safety is the main goal, I don't know if we justify that yet. If revenue is part of that goal, then, we try to get the company back out again.
Yeah.
But even if it works, your revenue is going to zero.
Right.
I mean, because it's worthless, nobody's doing it anymore, you're not gonna give any tickets, you don't get anything out of it.
Well, unfortunately, the studies don't show that.
I
Most of
I
these
know
other
that, but I'm
cities.
saying, as a working philosophy, it has a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you just reduced it, you lose,
I have studies that support it again, data that supports it in multiple cities. But again, those have followed their studies where the violations are there. In several occasions, they've had an influx of collisions at the intersections, but not people running through them, usually those that have an influx in rear-end collisions. And then very shortly after, then all of a sudden things start going back down again. And that's where more of my concern is on something like this is if we're one of those cities that we see an influx in crashes because people are just hammering their brakes in fear, now we've doubled the crashes that we would have there already if we have any influx. But again, the other argument could be, well, then people are following too closely, and that's a whole nother issue. So again, I know it can be argued in multiple different ways. That's where I'm trying to let the data drive instead of opinion and emotion, so to say.
Yeah, I want something on River Road.
Well, so,
I'm not,
well, almost,
maybe
I've
just,
been on this committee a while, but almost every speed research we did on Wheatland, on River, on Lock Haven, Chemung, every one showed one is that there are people who speed, and there are people who speed excessively, and it's harder than you could believe to try and catch them because it occurs so randomly. The other one is that the majority of the people drive the speed limit or are pretty close to it. And so where if I would go up and say, people are really speeding on Wheatland Road, and they put the tapes up there and we get all the research and shows, well, yeah, of the last 2,000 cars that went by, there were 21 speeding. Yeah, they were speeding, but it's almost impossible to deal. I mean, you can't, lowering the speed limit doesn't help, upping it doesn't help. I suppose if you took your police force and tripled it and parked them up on these roads, we would reduce speeders. But we can't afford that, and we don't have the people.
And
So-
with all due respect, I actually, every single crash that we take goes across my desk. So there's certain things that I look for in that crash as far as how can we get better, what are the primary causes of it. And the reality is, most of our crashes, and I don't think most cities are different than us, is the majority of them are occurring because of distracted driving. We have grants from ODOT for my guys to come out on overtime, so not just their regular hours, but to come out on overtime hours to work distracted driving enforcement. I think we have done well. I think we can still do better, but unfortunately, a majority of our crashes are still because of that distracted driving. Speed has not been the primary focus or the primary cause of dang near all of these crashes. You put 35, 40 miles an hour again on River Road, and you push that without a brake and you rear end somebody, you have a significant impact. And those are our issues that we truly have along River Road. And I don't see red light cameras helping us solve that issue when that's the bigger of the problem. I see our presence in our continued enforcement actions to try and curb it, as much as we possibly can. And that's why we spend a good majority of our time on River Roads. Unfortunately, not in our side neighborhoods where we know we still have some of the problems. That's why we need that data to say what's the best time, what's the best block, so we can break away and go hit those areas
So
too.
having the public call you when they see violations with information, especially repeat violations, would help us, help the police department.
Well, if they have a neighbor where, their son continually does this, on
Yeah.
a regular basis or anything, and that's an individual, those are absolutely problems we can come and, in most cases, solve immediately.
But they need the information that the people are speeding, the kids are spinning out, running red lights, running stop signs. They're always really nice when you call them.
so I would like to get back though to Councillor Day's suggestion. I know there is an expense, but it is informational, so I'm sure it's not going to drop it 50% even, but it would drop it some percent. Does anyone have any thoughts about pursuing that?
I don't like little sign. I mean, you have a reader board here in Kaiser. If you could put it around with those messages and move it around. You're not talking about small expenditures. If you think you're going to get a little sign that says informational sign that costs you $500 or $600 or $700, and how many of them do you need to blanket Kaiser to give them enough information? There might be other ways. The reader board might do it. The newspaper could do it. I don't know. Local radio stations.
Yeah.
The Kaiser TV channel could do it. I think there'd be a lot of things I'd do before I put up a metal sign on a 4x4 post.
Well, so, Councilor Day, roughly how big are we talking these signs?
Oh, boy. You gotta remember they're way up in the air, so I'm not entirely sure, but, if I had to guess, I'd say they were, 3 foot by 4 foot, 4 foot by 3, whatever. So
Right.
they're not, they might have been 2 foot by 3 foot. They weren't, they looked, like the signs that say, adopt a road, they looked about that size.
Okay.
That's probably a little bit bigger than that. But they were white with,
Right, with bright letters,
yeah.
Wayne?
Officer Leday, are the reader boards programmable? Can they put out an informational message?
As far as I know, I believe most of the ones that we've rented as a city for like the parade and things like that, we can program any messages that go into. I know there's a certain amount of characters, but I'm fairly certain, yes, they are programmable.
I think they're hackable too.
I'd rather use the reader board.
That is true.
I really like David's idea of using the reader board to be educational.
Michael, I just wanted to add, I think Councilor Dave's idea, I like that idea myself. I mean, it's not, the signs aren't saying that you're being monitored by a camera. It just says, if you drive through here on a red light and you get cited, this is what it's going to cost you. To me, that tells these people that people are watching. So that's one comment. I like that idea. Officer Day, I don't at all doubt your statistics, but I think part of that's coming from, I know for me as a driver anymore, I pay way more attention when the light goes green than I used to, because the incidence of people running red lights is so much higher now. I don't know what it is, but I really hesitate way more than I used to. And so there hasn't been an accident, but it's probably because I held back a little bit.
The other piece of this is we're talking about red lights, but we're going to have another group of signs about speeding and another group of signs about watching out that every intersection is a crosswalk. We're going to have a sign. I mean, how many signs are we willing to put out there? Because we just picked the red light. We got speeding, we got tailgating, we got distracted driving, we got no seat belts, we've got pedestrians, we got bicyclists that are legally doing what they should do. If you think about all that, you're going to blanket River Road with signs.
True.
So plus, I like the reader board idea, but that's not the only. I think we picked red lights as today.
Yeah. Well, I would say for red lights, I don't think we need to blanket River Road even. I think strategically could be placed.
Well, then where do we put the speeding ones?
Well,
How about the guys that peel out at the intersection? The kids at night that peel out, I don't know.
yeah. Well, I don't think is there a law against that? I don't know.
I'm sorry.
For peeling out at a green light, is there a law against that?
If you're spinning tires, yes.
Oh, okay.
It's an exhibition of speed.
I'd like to respond to that just a little bit. Now, I don't really see speeding as that big an issue. I mean, I've lived in Kaiser forever and so drive River Road all the time, live on Wheatland Road. I don't really see speeding as that big of an issue. You can drive down River Road most times of the day at 35 and pretty much everybody's going that same speed, I think.
with two of the people here, and I've heard Carol talk before about speeding on the side streets. So speeding is an issue in Kaiser. Not that it's true, I mean, it's a valid issue, it's an issue with the people who live here. Speeding, running red lights is what we're talking about tonight. Pedestrians, we've had all these issues over the years come up, I mean, they cycle through. And I think, who wasn't here this morning? Tammy talked about it, speeding, and Carol, you've talked about speeding out by where you live several times. So I know it doesn't bother me, but it does bother a lot of people. And the red light thing is what we're talking about tonight, and that bothers a lot of people. So there's a bunch of issues.
If you come up, if you have anything, I appreciate you come up. That way we can hear you better.
And Chair de Blasio, I would have to agree. Speed is an issue within our city. I mean, as far as the traffic safety supervisor, speed's been an issue for the last 29 years that I've been here. It'll probably be an issue for the next 29 years after I'm here.
So what about doing some education programs in some of the neighborhoods to educate about distracted driving? I know just in my circle, we have 100 homes. 16 of these guys are getting licenses this year. 3 are already driving. So if we educate different communities, then maybe that will help make a huge difference. And I don't know if there's a way we can just maybe send out a newsletter with some tips, or whether we could offer free or low-cost classes here to help re-educate and let people know, look, I see people on their cell phones all the time. It's distracted driving, it's against the law.
We do have brochures that give a lot of detail that we're more than happy to hand out.
I'd be more than happy to take some and take them around my neighborhood. I have 100 homes where I live. There's over 100 homes across the street that I also help take care of.
Do we have those that are?
So I am more than willing to put in some footwork, wheelchair work, because I still don't have permission to walk a whole lot yet.
Under item
But-
6.
And when there's people in your neighborhood who would be more than willing to help you, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have 32 people in my circle that's part of my neighborhood watch, 52 across the road.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
getting the word out isn't gonna be hard. It's just getting them the flyers and having them
Not
do it.
advice.
And making sure that we're in the schools and letting people know, hey, school's starting back up. These are some things that we have to think about.
Kennedy Elementary, you have a Safe Routes to School coordinator that's going to be
Right,
working
and I
with,
wrote that down. I am going to contact whoever that is.
it's McCray Carmichael. And she has about 6 schools that she's been assigned, and one of them is Kennedy. So she'll be meeting with, she wanted to meet with the PTA last year. Couldn't do it, but she has tons of information. And she's tied with ODOT Traffic Safety also. So all the brochures that we have and Sergeant Leday has are all from ODOT Traffic Safety.
So I was just gonna say, Carol, you seemed you had something to say. And I do want to rein the conversation back to red light cameras or signs.
It's just that I received a message from one of the neighbors, Dana Barker, who brought an issue to this committee and to the council about the traffic on Fifth. And she sent me.
On where?
On Fifth.
Oh.
Fifth runs between Sunset,
Mhm.
okay, and there's a pool there and the entrance to the park. And it just continues that they've got this parking on both sides because people are going to the pool, and it does not slow the traffic down coming through. And so, I just wanted to bring that to you now while you're discussing this thing, because they don't slow down. They just roar through the two lanes of parked cars, and perhaps one of the officers could go out. I know there was one.
So we've been out numerous times a few months back, so I don't know if we've been out there in the last month or so.
Okay.
Um,
The pool was closed for a while,
So
and it has reopened.
Mr. Chair, I just got a text message. It's from another counselor who's watching, says he can't hear what's going on.
And is he saying that for everybody or just people?
I don't know. He
Okay.
just said you can't hear half the stuff.
Okay.
Counselor Kohler.
Okay, thank you, and Counselor Kohler. We will try to be louder. That seems to have calmed down, whatever the problem was.
Okay. All right, I just wanted to bring that now while you were talking about the whole issue.
Okay.
So, for what it's worth, to take under consideration.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
So, getting back to the red light cameras, it sounds like it's a financial loser, I guess you could put it that way. And the signs, I still think it's a good idea, but it doesn't sound like there's a whole lot of support.
Well, the hard metal signs would be expensive,
Mm-hmm.
and you need a bunch of them. Instead of doing that, I really like the reader board idea, educational signs on the reader board, and then move the reader boards around to various locations.
Would we have Public Works do that or the police department?
So
If we
anything
wanted a
signed,
reader board with info,
yeah, I mean, anything that we would hamper any type of roadway thing with, that would definitely fall under Public Works as far as the roadway authority.
okay, so we have to talk.
Okay, so, Hersh, yes?
I heard renting reader boards, didn't I?
I believe so.
Okay, with renting means money. And with money, we have to be real careful here in Kaiser, at least for this year and maybe a little bit in the future. I like the idea of reader boards, but I think we should do like what other groups do, a focus week here and there during the year. We can look at our stats and say, okay, even though we haven't had a lot, these are the weeks or months that seem to get more cars going, and maybe do a focus that week, one end of River Road and the other end of River Road at the end of the week. That way and then look for ODOT traffic safety grants for distracted driving for us.
So I'm not sure if you guys pay attention to our city website or anything else like that, but we actually put monthly articles out where we have
Very
officers
good.
out on overtime, going out specifically, going and enforcing these types of violations.
But it'd be
And every
nice to
month
have a
we are
reader
doing that.
board, that's an educational tool, but not have it permanent and being able to move it and not getting our costs high.
I agree with, I'm running, one, we're talking about red light cameras.
Right.
I really would like to bring that to some sort of conclusion. It seems to me, at least what I keep bringing up, is the fact, and someone of you mentioned it, we need to educate the public better. I don't know how we're gonna do that yet. Your website is one, the newspapers there, the TV, there's lots of different ways. I think that needs to be something we discuss and come up with some ideas and follow through with it. And then we can talk about what information it is you want. So one of them obviously is running red lights. You need to, what can we do as a driver to avoid that tailgating, whatever. Lots of things that need to be caught. That's an issue that we should resolve and come up with some steps that I think that the people need to follow up on. Because the reader board thing is a solution to the red light camera, but it might be a lot broader than that. What do you do the next month? Put your cell phone away. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
put that on your sign, well, that's something. And I'm sure you guys have done a bunch of things like that already.
Not as far as like renting boards or anything
No,
else.
no, I
but
meant
we're-
the type of information.
In the posting of our, like, we have a Facebook page that we.
Yes.
As far as that social media, we do reach out on that on a regular basis.
So we need to get that same information out, maybe some different ways.
Well, I think, as Sergeant Lede said, it's a distracted driver thing, and if that's true, then a distracted driver is not paying attention to what they read in Kaiser Times or on the Facebook page at that moment. Yeah, maybe they're reading Kaiser Times when that's why they're distracted. So certainly education is always one of the legs of the stool. But I think at some point, people only respond to financial pain. And obviously, the signs, you're correct, David, that, we could put a sign for everything, practically like every month's another celebration. But I guess if we pick something, it does have to be a problem, but we have to be diligent about attacking the problem. And so moving signs around, reader boards, I think that's something that people forget, just like the same with this, the speed signs, they remember when they see the sign blinking, but the next time they go past that road, they probably forgot that the speed limit was 35 or 25.
That's what you mean, signs in general.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
metal ones are even worse than the ones you move them around. I would like to suggest that we investigate the cost of investigate how much it's gonna cost to rent a reader board for 2 months sometime during the next few months, to find out how much we're talking about, because we're just talking around it, and whether they're programmable and whether or not Public Works is willing to move them around for us. That would be one.
It's just an investigation.
Well, at this point, because we can't say do it, because we don't have any money.
Right.
So, I mean, so we need somebody to talk to Bill Lawyer and find out how much those things cost. And whether or not Public Works should move them around. I know they got them for the parade, I mean.
Yeah, but those are kind of paid for by the chamber.
Well, I know, I'm just saying, somebody can investigate that and find out what we're talking about. Then we can decide whether to put them up for the running red lights information.
Michael, I'm kind of the new guy on the block here, but I don't think our mission is to make a decision about this. My personal feeling is we kind of take all these, there's been about 3 or 4 or 5 ideas here, and package them up and move them on to city council where there can be a real legitimate investigation, getting into the facts about all of them, and let the decision be made there.
So that's great comment.
But I always thought we should be more proactive too. I mean, city council does what the city council does, and we said, look, we're here to talk about traffic safety. Here's what we think. And so
Well-
we call Ross and we say, here's what we think about red light cameras, and he and his cohorts on the city council will make a decision about that. They could do more investigation, but otherwise there's not much point in us being here, because they could have listened to Carol.
Well, I think that we can package up something, a group of suggestions, including a preference to city council, and city council can decide whether they want to act on any of those, or if they want to do some more research, or just ignore us.
Ross, how much direction do you want from us? Suggestions?
Well,
So my suggestion is, I think if you just come to city council and say, 7 of us and a few people from the community thought that, we think our belief is that River Road is unsafe for whatever reason, and we want to put, reader board or signs or red light cameras or whatever. I think you need to, if you're going to make that recommendation to the city council, I think you need to make sure, you need to make your case, basically, right? To borrow an analogy in my profession, you need to make your case. The facts, make what your argument is, the facts that back up your argument, and then what you think the solution is, and why, and if there's one solution you prefer over the other. I think if you just come to the city council and you say, we talked about this on August 19th, and we decided that, putting red light cameras is the best idea. We want you guys to consider it. I don't think it's going to go very far. What will happen, just so you're aware, I don't know this for a fact, but my sense is that what would happen is whatever recommendation that this committee makes to the city council, the city council will probably turn that over to staff and to Mr. Hare and ask staff to come back with a report to see if they concur or not with the committee. And then if there's an action item that the city staff recommends we take, then we'll consider it. But if city staff comes back and says, we appreciate their concern and their hard work, but we think this is a solution looking for a problem, then probably nothing's going to happen. I don't think it's proper to characterize it as ignoring, because I don't think I know the city council takes recommendations from its committees very seriously, but I do think that how seriously you want city council and city staff to consider this will be reflected in how you make the recommendation to city council.
As opposed to, hey, River Road's unsafe. Now, turn that over to Public Works to research it.
Yeah, and that wasn't my idea. I was thinking more along the lines, we talked to council, say we discussed this issue that was brought to our attention about possible red light camera installation on River Road, based on conversations with the public, amongst ourselves, with Sergeant Leday. This is our opinion on that one, but also other options were brought up, including signs. This is why we support or don't push, that's not our preference or is our preference, reader boards. So, we could have the suite of ideas that came up, and this was the one we prefer, and we would, like with reader boards, then we would say, I suppose, I don't know if we need to do research on that much other than the cost, and perhaps working with Public Works, seeing if that would be something that they would be willing to accept as a responsibility. And then that would be the council's decision to direct Public Works to even, I guess, investigate the cost.
No, I think that would be, the proper course of action. My sense, and again, I don't know this for a fact, and I don't, this is just based on my 8 months on the council, so you gotta take it all with a grain of salt, is that the council will probably want the input from certainly the police department, from Public Works, city attorney would be my guess. I don't know. A lot of that would largely be up to Mr. Hare, I suspect, but not only in terms of you know, the efficacy of using a reader board or any of the proposed solutions. You know, can we do this? Is this a wise use of our resources and time, manpower, woman power, those sorts of things. But there's, the one thing I want to make sure that we're clear on is that there is absolutely nothing wrong with, or nothing improper from my perspective, from this committee making a recommendation to the city council. That's what you're here for. And 100% support that right now. Would I support this specific proposal? It just depends on what, you know, the staff comes back with and tells us, you know, but I do want to make it clear that this is 100% what you guys should be doing.
So Debbie, is that, in order to have a recommendation written up, is that something we have to have done tonight? Or is that something we can do separate, like kind of through you, where we're reviewing a draft and we all can put our input into it and then have a draft that becomes the final and then one of us goes to council?
Yep, that would work. You could just send your input to me and we could compile it all, and then whoever is going to bring it to council can maybe finalize it working on that.
As soon as we get information. Somebody has to do the research.
Research meaning costs of the
Well,
reader board, or-
in this case, it cost, how programmable is it? Or who's going to move it around? Where do you want to put it? Pick up 5 locations or something. Everything is amenable to change. You gotta remember that when you go, I mean, if I was going to the city council, I'm assuming regardless of what we say, all of it, any bit or the whole thing or little piece of it, it could be changed by the city council or the police department because we made a mistake, probably. So, yeah. But
Well-
we still need to do the information. And yeah, it would be nice, but we've talked to the police department already tonight. And I'm sure he's got some notes about something he's gonna look at. And he's given us some valuable information about red light running and so forth. So I think we should look up some costs, and somebody should investigate how much it costs for these metal signs and how much it costs. My recall was it was $180 to install a slow sign.
That's-
Install it.
Install.
That's just.
Oh, yeah, that's because the sign itself is really expensive and you have to buy them from either the city of Salem or Marion County or the state or something. Anyway, they're expensive. So somebody needs to investigate that.
Okay.
And how many you're talking about. And just pick a number. I don't even care, so.
Well, can I ask Sergeant Leday, you, with the stats you had, was there an intersection that was the problem child, or was it just spread out?
Okay, then.
Off the top of my head, without going back through and checking the numbers, I want to say Kaiser Station had more of our issues than anything along River Road.
Wow.
Oh, well, look at the intersection.
More than a couple of the intersections that go through that.
Okay.
Anyway, so I think we need to do that and then make the decision next month.
Make the decision to,
What the recommendation is going to be, if any, to the city council.
how does everyone else feel about the timing on that? Would you prefer to wait a month to do the recommendation?
But-
Or
Well, to
would you?
get the data, it's gonna
She
take.
said yes, we'll go with Tammy.
Yeah,
Tammy said
So somebody on the committee needs to volunteer to do the research for the pricing.
yeah.
yes. There's nobody.
Leave me out of
You're
it until
busy,
after the
yeah.
Yeah.
monster cookie, okay?
And I'm out of town.
Okay. Well, I'm sure I could find out how much a reader board costs to rent.
Well, Chamber of Commerce just did it.
Yeah.
Right, so I could
Just,
give them a
yeah,
call.
I'll just call Corey, she would know exactly the price. She probably wrote the check.
Yeah,
So you're gonna do that?
yeah, but how about the signs? Who do you contact for that?
Bill would know, or,
Marion County does our signs.
Okay, so you just call and ask.
Public Works, Marion County Public Works?
I bet they know. Oh, I bet Public Works knows how
our
much
public
signs.
works would know the price.
Yeah, I'm sure Mike Griffin would know if he was here tonight.
Right. Okay, so I'll look at the cost of the reader board
And the-
and, yeah.
It's not only the sign installation, but the sign and the post. They all have to be of certain safety
There's by
caliber.
code, yeah, there's a code, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
I would like us to put on and all of us to think about what they brought up before. How do you educate, and the police department's doing one thing, how do you educate the population of the citizens of Kaiser better, or at least so they know more about driving safely? And
Well-
so you have the police website, but and I think we need to think about those things and may or may not come up with some,
Well-
reader board was a solution, but there's lots of other things we could do, or have done, or have the city do. It would
Well,
make life safer for all of us.
I know what our compadres from the south do periodically when there's a traffic safety issue. They have at least a presentation at all the neighborhood associations.
That's an item, yes.
We don't have the neighborhood associations in the numbers in the areas that Salem does, but it is a start. And
Anyway, I think there's a bunch of ideas, and I think if we think about it for 30 days, we'll come up with a list of more than the 6 I wrote down real quick. And so they were kind of coordinated, and I'll talk to the newspaper. Well, I don't know if they'd voluntarily give us a square inch of the paper, or how much it costs. Because some things, for example, I told somebody the other day, well, it's legal for somebody on a bicycle to come up to a stop sign and take a right turn without stopping. And it just couldn't possibly ever be true. And well, I didn't think so either. But so the information, a lot of it's just information.
Okay.
And I think we can come up with some good ideas, and I'd like that on the agenda if everybody else is interested.
Okay. All right, so I think we've got our homework for that one for next meeting.
Okay.
So the next one will be is the sidewalk connectivity and the priority with the GIS maps. So I was thinking about that this past month, and I think Wayne's brought this up in the past too, is about the Safe Routes to School has what's it called? The project identification grants, and where you don't need a lot of city staff time, and ODOT has a contract with Alta Planning. And so if we had applied to the project identification grant and were successful, that would be much more focused and professional and run right into our construction grant than what we're doing. So, thoughts on that? And that's a 2022 grant application.
So the city applies for the grant?
The city applies for a grant. Now, I would imagine McCray could help us
I'm
with,
hoping that's the case. I'm hoping that's the case, because we'd have to get her in here to talk, but this last year with COVID, she's been more trying to establish the Safe Routes to School brand and getting websites and talking to principals versus doing grants, but.
Okay, so she's gonna be busy the end of the next month.
Well, next month, but as we get into the grant cycle, we can also even talk with Heidi Manlove from ODOT. Heidi might be even willing to come and talk to this group.
Tell her we promised to stay 6 feet away from her.
so do I sense support for having us apply for the project identification grant so that we can be so more narrowly focused?
At least let's investigate whether or not we can.
And it's Safe Routes to School,
Yeah.
is that through ODOT?
It is,
Okay,
yeah. I
so
guess.
This gal you knew, Heidi, somebody?
Yeah. Manlove,
She's the
Does anybody know her well enough to invite her to come and talk to us about it? Could you do that?
Well, maybe you can too, because you'll see her on the 29th.
Oh, if I remember. Anyway, so she could come either the next meeting or the
Well,
one
I don't
after.
know what her schedule is.
Yeah, I know,
already,
we're
but-
flexible. we're all-
So.
Okay, so we'll invite Heidi.
Okay, so we'll invite her to talk about the program. And then based on,
And McCray.
and McCray, yeah, and based on that information, I guess we would then have to ask the city council for approval to apply for the grant.
Mhm.
In which case then, hopefully with that approval, because there's not a whole lot of city time involved, we could then jump right into writing that grant and be ready for the application deadline.
Which is, do you know when?
I saw it, I want to say April 22, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
Getting Heidi should know the
Yeah,
exact
Heidi
stuff.
and
McCray
McCray
should
know.
know.
So, but as I said, I think that we'll be obviously participating if we do win the grant, because there's walk audits and working with Alta Planning on all the information that they need for the identification of where the project's most needed. But I think because it then runs right into the application for the money for the construction. I have a feeling it'll boost our chances. Yeah, fingers crossed.
We did and we did get comments that it was a good try, the first application that we did, but other cities were light years ahead.
Mhm. Okay.
No.
All right, so now moving on to Hirsch's big thing.
The Monster Cookie is August 29th, and we are hoping to have a traffic, bikeway, and pedestrian committee booth there with a few helmets, as well as safety information, which it will include distracted driving pamphlets, as well as the newest Oregon Bicycle Drivers Manual, which also does talk about distracted bicycle driving in some of the area maps and such.
All right.
So what I was hoping is I gave David all the pamphlet information and such, so he has that. And maybe setting the booth up over closer to the big toy, I'll have that all
You
laid
have a
out.
place, you just point to where I need to.
Yeah, I'll have all that laid out. I've been working with Robert from the Parks, and we have that whole field, so. And Heidi is supposed to be there from traffic safety. McCray is supposed to be there. I haven't confirmed with her, but the last talk we are. Oregon State Extension will be there with their blender bike. I'm supposed to get a confirmation tomorrow, but Salem Kaiser School Transportation will have a bus out there. We'll be able to put our Monster Cookie signs on that. So there'll be a number of other groups out there, and hopefully we can fit a few helmets, because the mini cookie, which is more of a family fun ride, yes, Counselor Ross.
I'll be there.
You need a helmet?
Yeah.
I don't. My wife and I have really fancy helmets that
Oh,
actually have walkie-talkies in them.
So we'll,
I don't know about
the mini starts at 10 o'clock, and there'll be families there, and there might be an opportunity to fit a helmet or two. But the main ride starts at 8, and once the group picks up their registration, they'll just head on out. Kaiser Police is going to be on board for the Kaiser portion, and out in the county, Marion County Deputy Sheriffs are going to be out there. We'll have 3 SAG vehicles to help pick up people. The mini, we'll actually have mini cookies at the end for them. So, and right now, we're almost 350 people signed up. So our target was 500. And knowing this is the 45th year of this ride, so we kind of got some experience. We know a lot of people, Oregon cyclists, wait to the last minute. So we expect to get close to that 400 number. And this year we can actually say, do the 45th at the 45th.
There you go.
I have a question. So, if I may, Mr. Chair. So this is the Monster Cookie bike ride. Are people who ride trikes invited as well?
Yes,
Okay.
and e-bikes.
Oh, excellent. And then just, I need to report somebody who has just told me that she intends to commit a crime to Sergeant Leday. My wife just texted me and told me she's not wearing a helmet that day. So you might want to look out for that scofflaw.
Oh, yeah, well, we from our club's insurance standpoint, we would have to say, stop. Because our liability and coverage does require, and you signed a form online that says you will wear a helmet.
Also, I think I need to find a place to sleep tonight.
Now, if we get 500 riders, or even if we don't, $1 per rider is going to go to bike promotion and safety. And since this is the last year I'm going to be the coordinator, I've asked the bike board that it be donated to our Safe Rides to Schools programs here in Kaiser. And another little group that's working for the Monster Cookie is Harriet Elementary Teachers with Robert Garcia from Salem Leadership is managing the lunch stop. And we're giving them $500 for their classrooms. The teachers last year weren't able to decorate the classrooms like they love to do. And this year they're at least able to go into their classrooms. So they stepped forward from West Salem and said, hey, could we help? And so they'll be up there and handing out sandwiches, and you may have to pull the cookies away from those teachers because those are good cookies up there. So,
All right.
that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so moving on to project reports. Jamie's not here, so I'll just get that out. But Hirsch,
I can honestly report I did nothing.
yeah,
The Monster Cookie, because it's so changed this year and because of COVID and having to meet with so many different groups, I got sidetracked and I just couldn't do it.
I do have a question, not about what you've done, but in general, for this bicycle-friendly designation, does that require, or what does that require of the city? Like, do we have to have a coordinator for that? Or
No. For the League of American Bicyclists, as they said, the staff support that we got to do the application, we have to go through city council, which we did, but takes a lot more. Most of the data that they require has already been done 2 years or 3 years ago. And so, we don't have to, the number of streets we have hasn't changed significantly, whatever. The things that have changed are the roundabout. Some of our plans for Wheatland Road can be incorporated for the long-range plans. McRae's position within the Salem Kaiser School District and having 2 schools, that makes a change. But it does require writing their report. And it's, a few pages and I just didn't get to it. I apologize, but it's not a dead issue. It's worth doing because it can affect a city in in funding, especially in the private areas related to cycling and such.
Okay, well, thank you.
If I may, Hirsch, is the deadline done for that?
Yeah.
So it needs to not be on the agenda until next year?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I don't, they won't have the applications available again till after the first of the year.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I just didn't,
Yeah, it's been a crazy year.
yeah, very crazy year.
Okay, planning commission report, Rick.
Today I started to listen to the audio of the planning commission last night. I apologize, I couldn't get all the way through it, I had to go do something else. But the whole first part of the meeting was about discussion of the planning codes, residential density and those sorts of things. So I don't think that was something that affected us directly. I will go back and listen to the rest of the second half or so of that meeting and see if there's anything that does apply to us. But then about 10 days ago, I went to the city council meeting, told them about we'd been presented with the red light issue at our last meeting and that we were going to have a more formal discussion about it at this meeting. So kind of briefed them on that. And then, Michael, I talked to him about your maps that you had given to us, and I made the comment that it seemed like a lot of the streets that were lacking sidewalks were kind of the historical collector, minor arterials and so forth. And Mayor Clark just made the comment that a number of those were in the TSP for future projects. And so I went into the TSP and pulled out the sidewalk and pedestrian projects that have already been programmed. I think there's 12 pedestrian projects and 11 bike projects. So it seems to me like we ought to take your map and somehow have those added to that map also, maybe a different color code, so that it further focuses down the areas that we really do need to look at.
Debbie, do you know if that's something GIS people could do?
I don't know anything about the GIS people. I can check with Mike and see if, he knows, but I think, I don't know. It may require a little more work from you to figure out which projects have been done and which ones aren't. And then you could pass that information on to the GIS people and they could take that maybe and do it.
Yeah, this table is April of '09. I mean,
Yes,
that's
I know.
apparently how far back the
Pretty old.
TSP goes, yeah. And Debbie, you might want to record the bike projects are table 5.2 and the pedestrian are 5.1. I mean, I could take a look at all these and see if any of these have been completed, if that's a proper
Yeah,
thing.
I think
to
if
do.
you could do that, and then we could take
Okay.
that, what's not been completed, and give that to Mike, and hopefully they could then incorporate it into the maps.
Okay, I'll do that, and then Debbie, either give that information directly to you or to Mike, either one.
Either one, yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you. All right, so we'll move to committee member input. We'll start with Wayne. You've been quiet for a while.
I've really got no input. I'm still gonna be quiet.
Okay. David?
Nope, nothing.
I was watching the city council the other night, and there was a woman who came to talk about her property on Chamala Road and how it seems to be a magnet for cars. I don't know, do you remember the address on that?
No, I know it's on a curve on Chamala.
Right, it's pretty close to the roundabout,
Uh-huh.
that end of Chamala.
It's
not-
Jen?
Yes.
I can probably give you the address here.
It's a big yellow house, the
Yeah,
two-story yellow
one
house.
old house, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the address though.
Yeah, so there's a gentle curve on Chamala as you're heading towards the roundabout. And apparently, there have been incidences where people have driven into her property. And so they've put boulders. She's had tree damage, including, I don't know if it was hers or her neighbor's tree that had to get cut down because of the damage. I don't know, has anyone ever heard about that problem?
No.
Because I don't think she's ever come to us about that.
You have.
I'm sure, yeah.
I
But
know.
I don't think she'd come to our committee about that.
I know about it. I know Miss Kellogg, and I'm aware of the problems that she's had.
Okay.
And they're legitimate complaints.
Oh, it sounds, yeah, for sure.
I know that Mr. Lawyer is on it.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
So, yeah, that's good. I know we talked about speeding and speed limits and all that, but
Some of that,
35 is a little fast for,
it might be distracted
It's 30
driving.
mile an hour zone through there.
is it 30?
Unfortunately, in most cases, distracted driving has been the issue again.
Well, when someone fell asleep.
So it's not, this is
Or
the most
looking
recent
at
one,
their-
it was a fatigue driving case.
Yeah, that was a recent one, yeah. But it's certainly not a sharp turn, so it's not like it comes up on you.
That have also been causes in there. I mean, it's the position of the road as far as being within the curve, people are straightening it out, which goes into their property itself. And so it's not an easy solve. I know the lawyer is aware of it right now also. As far as putting fixed barricades, doesn't necessarily work because then you add liability as far as if people strike that and it causes a fatal crash. So it's something that needs to be truly looked into by engineering on the public works side. It's not just something that we can just come up with a fix right away and say, yes, it's a done deal.
Mhm.
But I know it's on this table.
Well, I think it would be great if Public Works could talk to us too about how their ideas and if maybe we'd have any input.
So can we, Debbie, is there a way of jotting a note? I'm assuming Mike will be here next month, I mean.
You know, I think the most effective way is if you have a suggestion on some safety improvements, to just call Public Works, rather than ask them to come to me.
I just wondered if they'd like to report on the conditions, if they've done anything between today and next month.
I think it will take longer than that. Like Councilor Day said, it's going to involve engineering research to do it, have an effective remedy.
Okay.
Okay.
What I
Well,
can tell you is that our initial thought on solving the problem was just putting Sergeant Leday in a tent out there.
make sure it's a bright tent though.
Yeah.
You don't want to drive right through.
Nice orange one,
Yeah.
That's right.
Or yellow.
orange.
Okay, well, that's all I had, I think. Yeah. All right. Ursh, anything else?
Monster cookies,
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really consumed all my time for the last month and a half.
Yeah. Rick, anything for input? Nope. All right, well, staff report, Mike's not here unfortunately. Hopefully he's having fun wherever he is.
I hope.
Yeah, and so move to Sergeant Leday.
Nothing to report. I think I've talked quite a bit tonight.
Yeah, all right.
Again, thank you, Kaiser Police, for helping on the monster cookie.
Counselor Day, anything?
I have nothing.
Okay. All right, well, I guess we're going out with a whimper here.
There we go.
Yeah, all right, well,
Well, hope to see as many of you at the monster cookie, even if you helping at the booth or riding.
Mike said
I can be there.
he can show up, but my
I
granddaughter's
will
gonna
be
help.
meandering around, but I'll have a lot of other hats on at that time.
Okay.
Good job.